Well, welcome back here to the SEAM studio, and this is for the fifth presentation in our flying technique. We're in the mountains, so let's get right back in the mountain and see what else I've got there. Oh my goodness, here we go now with takeoffs, because we've done the landings, but we also got to do, this looks like a little bit of a longer one here, so let's just sit tight in there. There's a little bit of valley flying. We're going to talk about false horizons, considerations and caution, downdraft actions. Yeah, you know what to do when you're in trouble, turbulent flying conditions, and emergency gear. So we're going to have a look at all those individual things. So let's get on and let's get going with the takeoff profile. Now, let's just read what I've said here. The following method should be utilized depending on the power available. And it's a tower or towering climber here, some people say. The method used as a standard after takeoff. The escape route based on accelerate the helicopter above 45 knots by diving into the clear area. Whoa, remember that once you take off, you're going to have a pot full of potential energy in the form of height. It's just an area in front of you where there's no mountain, okay? And that height you can put into speed. You need the speed. In a multi, you need your 40-45 knots to assure, and in a small helicopter, man, you also need that, because above 40 knots, you can actually successfully enter an auto-rotation. And it might be a long way to auto-rotate, but you're going to have a chance. It's better than nothing. Ground effect takeoff. A ground effect takeoff may be feasible in a plateau area, especially when power available is little to perform the transition. And this is where I'm going to tread lightly when I say what I'm going to say there. Make maximum use of the plateau around the ground effect. The pilot could manipulate to the furthest downwind position from where the acceleration into wind can be started. And I need to show you the pictures. So let's go to this picture now. And let's first look at this one. Here, on the picture that we have, let me just go back there and to the front. Here we see the tower climb takeoff, potential energy into kinetic energy. It's the typical tower climb. But remember, here in front of you, that height is all potential energy that you can use. Now, surely I could have just gone straight and hopped off. Yes, I could, depending on the terrain and what it is. I just wanted to describe this kind of, let's say it, this kind of takeoff to you. Here goes the ground effect takeoff. You could do exactly the same thing and just run straight and fall off the face there. And this is where, if I'm a little bit heavy, I would have landed right on the face, and I could just hop off there. So before, due to momentums and all that kind of stuff, I would have been airborne, and I would be sitting with a handful of potential energy to use down here. Please don't try this at home. Again, you need to be shown the techniques and where it is, because if you've got this one wrong, you're going to probably pay for worth your life. All right? So everything that I say here needs to be taught, and not because there's anything wrong with you, but you've got to get used to that. At this height and this landing again here, this height here we were talking about, well, that is again 9,000 feet above sea level. Not a big deal if you go into the 13 and 14,000 feet mountains, but 9,000 feet is a great position, especially if you're flying with these helicopters in the area. Because, I mean, you know, what we're going to say is, if you're flying with this kind of helicopter, what kind of height do you think you can achieve? This specific height, I'm not sure, but I think this is a little bit lower down the mountain, probably something like 7,500, 8,000 feet above sea level. Nothing to sneer at. any foot above sea level must be respected. All right, so let's do a little bit of the valley flying thing. Now, yes, the pictures are nice. Yes, it's pretty to fly there, but it also can be a flying trap for beginners. So let's just have a look and see. Valley flying is defined as any flying when confined within the space of a geographical valley. Whoa, okay. That's just a very fancy method to say that we're flying down the valley. The following flying methods are safely oriented and could not always be applied when operational or NOE, nap of the earth flying, is required. When circumstances allow, it is advisable too. All right, now we are not going to do NOE flying, nap of the earth flying. This is far advanced from where we are now. What we are going to do is what to consider inside a valley. So for all intents and purposes, ignore that first sentence. The pilots to inspect the area for wires and safe height prior to entering the valley. Guys and girls, if you fly low level on a river without having done a proper reconnaissance or reconnoitering the area, you are silly. I wanted to say stupid, but I don't know which one is the worst. Okay, the pilot is to assess the wind and contemplate the effect thereof prior to entering into the valley. Because, I mean, if you're sitting with this massive wind howling through the valley and you're flying, and inside the valley there is up and down drafts as well. Okay, especially if it's crosswind, then the wind will have to dip in there. That can have a major effect. You know, a lot of times when we talk about wind, we're talking about this 5 knots and 8 knots. You are lucky if you only get 8 or 10 knots of wind in the mountain. Let's rather talk 15 to 20 knots plus. All right, then you start paying attention now to the cliff faces. When flying up a valley, it is advisable to approximately 2/3 of the depth of the valley. The speed must be kept commensurate with the safe maneuvering within the valley confines. An escape route or turnaround ought to be feasible at all times. I'm going to draw this just now a little bit more. When flying down a valley, lower height can be flown, although the escape routes, tight turns, maneuvering must be planned carefully. The lower the height should not be as low as to execute the possibility of flying the aircraft on a single engine should the need arise. Let's do that sentence again. The lower the height should not be so low as to exclude the possibility of flying the aircraft on a single engine. All right, let's look at the considerations when we get to the pictures just now. All right, first note, should the landing be required in a valley, the pilot is to move so as to fly the approach facing up the valley. A lot of times, you know, if you come down a valley and the valley is decreasing in height, to approach from high to low is, you actually can't do it. You shouldn't do it. There's no way that you can get the rate of D sorted out in that one. All right? So you'll have to get a little bit, a smidgen of a headwind component, but you'll have to try other methods. Should the landing be required, as I said there. Then, the steepness of the valley and the wind strength must be carefully compared when approaching for a landing up the valley. Obviously, if up the valley is not feasible. Cautions, I said when forced to turn about in a valley with simultaneously staying downwind, especially wind is strong, could mean a rate of descent induced from which recovery is not possible. When more than one helicopter operates separately in the same valley, then there must be contact between the two. So let's get into the valley and see what I mean by all the things that I have just said. Here I've got the little wind. Here, if you are flying up or down the valley, I was talking about 2/3 up. If you are 2/3 up, with a crosswind, it's not a problem. But remember now, if the wind was flowing down this valley in that direction, and you're flying up and you've got to turn around, you're going to be downwind. That is not a good position to be. Yes, you can fly low, but you can see it gives you, well, in a single engine, it gives you no options. But even if you are flying up a valley with a multi-engine and you lose the one engine, you're going to be in a little spot of bother at that moment in time. I know we don't always plan that the engine is going to fail, and we do some low flying from time to time, and I understand that, and I also do that from time to time. But I don't live there. I don't necessarily live where I shouldn't live. Don't unnecessarily expose yourself if that is not a requirement. If your work requires for you to be in the curve where the void curve, or as some places known as the dead man's curve, well, it's part of the job. But it shouldn't be part of hobby. All right. Now, let's have some considerations. I just thought this was a beautiful place here. This place here, actually, and the water flows through there. This is very low water. The water is normally about at this height here or something. It's called the Cattle Dip. It's up there in the Drakensberg. So let's have a look here at the comments here. The Venturi effect in mountain passes can increase wind velocity significantly. Wow. Now, this is where you must just think, if the wind is forced through a narrowing space in the mountain, if it's forced through there, the speed of the wind will increase. That's the Venturi effect. Now, all of you know the Venturi effect, and now you know that if you end up inside that Venturi, then especially with light aircraft and light helicopters, you could be in serious trouble. Must be able to read the wind, must be able to see the wind. When approaching the ridge, so fly at a 45-degree angle, a quarter to half a mile out. Outbound, fly straight out 90 degrees, get away as quickly as possible from such an area. These are good tips. Remember that. 45 degrees on the way in, and out, just get the hell out of there. Downdrafts can be as smooth or rapid, or jolting or whatever. Monitor the VSI. Typical downdraft will cruise up to 1,000, 1,500 feet per minute descent. Whoa, are you sure? Yeah, well, an updraft can be so strong that your collective couldn't be on the ground and you're sitting there. Never underestimate the power of nature. There is nothing in nature that limits it to your helicopter. Okay. Let's have a look at the false horizon issue, realizing that the actual horizon is near the base. Okay. Now, this is pretty much when you are in a mountain and you're facing upslope. And here I'm sitting in the hover and I'm facing the upslope right in front of me. It will feel as if I'm sitting with a serious nose low. I'm sitting there, but it will feel as if I'm sitting there. If I turn around, it's going to feel if I'm sitting with a very high nose. Attitude. That is a phenomenon that is true. It is not that it only happens to certain people. Everybody is that. So the false horizon is it's like a slope, disorientation, vertigo state that you get. But you have to use the rest of the instruments then. Now, just remember, when you land at the base in a deep mountain area, facing the uphills, and you turn around from there, you're going to get a fright, because you're going to feel when you turn away of your nose is sitting too high, and obviously not a huge problem, because if the feeling too high, you're going to push forward and you're going to fly away from the mountain. But that is a false sense. Okay, the mistake of using the summit or the peak of the horizon will result in the aircraft being placed in the attitude of constant climb. So there is, let's get rid of that one and put that one. This is just one of the phenomena there. When flying low level up a mountain where the summit is very right, one loses the correct sense of the horizon. That is true. When hovering close facing a steep rising ridge, one gets the feeling of nose attitude far too low, and that's what I've been describing. In the same spot, if you do 180, it will fire full of the nose is far too high. Okay, those are the illusions that you will get. Always remain situationally aware and use the helicopter instrument to aid awareness of the attitude. Yeah, but I don't want to fly inside. No, I don't want you to fly inside the helicopter. That's really not the case. But remember, it's like in instrument flying, or when you're disorientated and you actually, your senses cannot make proper sense anymore. That's why instruments are there. And, well, they help. They help. They definitely do. Now, actions when we're caught in a downdraft. Wow. When flying, just listen to this one. It is a big story. I say here, when flying towards a mountain, into wind, thus you're on the lee side of the ridge. Apply maximum continuous power, and the speed, the shear speed is constant, not over that. That's now when you're caught in a downdraft, okay? So here's the mountain. I'm flying towards the mountain, and I get a downdraft. What do I do? This is what I do. If no way possible or safe, just maintain 40 knots and ride the downdraft. The rate of D will decrease as the heli gets closer to the foothills, and also follow the contour. Close to the mountain ridge, the rate of D will reduce significantly and eventually stop. Oh, so what I'm saying is that this is the mountain there, the wind is coming, but the wind can only flow down until it's got a level off with the ground again. So here you're sitting in the downdraft, so go down. The rate of descent must decrease close to the ground. And that's why I say the next one, I say ride the wave and do not chicken out. To turn around may be lethal, because downwind, if you are, remember now, as the wind is coming down, you sitting in a downdraft, if you now turn around, you're going to just lose a significant amount of height. So if you're caught in that area, you can ride it out. Is it nerve-wracking? Well, I think so. And I've been in there more than once. And it was never nice. But I was also taught not to chicken. And although I felt like a chicken, I couldn't chicken out. All right. When such conditions, if you suspect it, then gauge sufficient height to clear the mountain reached by 500 feet. Now, you know, I say that 500 feet with tongue in cheek because I think it's too low. 1,000 feet plus, man. Always study the mountain features to determine when updrafts and downdrafts may exist and fly accordingly. When flying away from the mountain ridge with the tailwind the lee of the mountain, apply max CP and fly at VX, and you should get away. Let me just go back and let's just reiterate. What I said is, if you're flying towards a mountain and there's obviously wind dropping over, and all of a sudden you are caught in the downdraft, you haven't got enough height to turn around, there is no possibility. Pull your max continuous power, get yourself up to 40 knots, and just ride it down. The wind cannot blow through the ground at the bottom, but you've got to have the guts to stay at it. Okay, all right. Not easy, but that is the way. Lenticular clouds indicates extreme turbulence. All right, there's just a couple of indications. The further you are from the ridge, the less turbulence and downdrafts you will experience. Then I say during the turbulent conditions, decrease the speed according to the handling notes of your aircraft, and you will have to reduce the CP. In heavy turbulence, fly an attitude and accept altitude loss. In heavy turbulence, fly an attitude and accept. And that's why I said if you're caught in that downdraft, max continuous power, 40 knots, and just leave it there. And then you've got to accept the drop in height. But remember, if there's heavy turbulence and there is heavy up and down drafts in whatever kind of weather, for every downdraft there's an updraft. But for every downdraft, they must stop somewhere because it cannot fly or flow into the ground. Depending on the wind and ridge, climbing may reduce the turbulence. Well, I'm pretty happy with that. That if you just get away. Now, remember, if you can see the wind, if you can visualize the wind, and you can see there it comes and there's turbulence and all that, and you can try and project that depending on the wind strength, you can always climb and higher and higher. If you cannot go higher, then you must go around. But you cannot go into it. Yeah, but I've got a strong aircraft. Well, there's no aircraft built strong enough for the mountains. The idea is to know when not. Okay. Be very alert to rate of descent and power settings as well as speed to not lose control of the helicopter. And I'm not saying that lightly. That is really one of the problems that we had. Critical thoughts? Said when flying up a valley into wind. All right. Now, this is the drawing I've been waiting for. This is now the valley, and we are flying up this valley now. Oh, that didn't work well. So let me get here. We're flying up this valley, and we're now going to the top. But you say it's into wind. So the wind is blowing down here. Okay, down the slope. I think you've got the idea. All right. So the mountain rises very quickly in this latter part here. And the power that you have might just be too little to get you over the top. It might just be too little. So the mountain here is literally out-climbing, or it's outperforming the capability of the helicopter. In still conditions, if there was no wind, if I could take these away, and there was no wind, I probably would have made it quite easily. But the problem is that there's no wind. So all of a sudden, if I'm low level and I get to this point here, and I cannot climb higher, if there is a wind dropping over the side here, I can give you a letter in Braille if you wish. Meaning that it's hard facts. You're not going to be able to turn around. And you're going to find yourself in a spot somewhere there. Guaranteed. Yeah, but it's a 100 million rand aircraft. Well, you've scribbled 100 million. It's a 6 million. Well, you scribbled 6 million. The millions does not help. The method and the technologies, those two. Remember that the methods that we use considers all these other little factors that we're talking about. Okay. So what's the next thing that I say? I say to turn around close to the valley from the head to a tailwind is disastrous. And I don't have to talk about this anymore. I think it was explained enough. You cannot turn around. So if you've flown yourself into the corner, there's no way out. I'm sorry. But that's why we've got people to talk about that and teachers to fly with you and situations so that you do not end up low level, flying up a valley and running out of ideas. Because running out of ideas will have only one result. Now, the accident, I can sort of guarantee. Whether you're going to walk away from that, well, I obviously don't know. All right. What emergency gears are we looking at? So let me get some of them going there. And let's see in a mountain, what is it that we need? And as it goes up, you will say, well, you know, all these things and new technologies and this and all the rest. But with all the technologies in the world, if you haven't got a space blanket or something warm or something, and you go down freezing and getting frostbite and to die from cold is a huge possibility. Yeah, but it's a lovely day. I know. But you see, when the weather comes in, it doesn't say, okay, well, let's give Charlie a chance because let him just get out there. I mean, we look like we're going to be okay, but, you know, I don't want to spring this on him. It's going to be sprung on you. Okay? So, it's madness not to look for your emergency. Blankets, food. I'm not talking food for a week, guys. I'm talking here food for a day or so. A couple of chocolate bars or whatever. Water. You need water. It's new technology. Flashlights. Fire starters, if you could probably make a fire. Handheld radio. A signaling mirror, you must be out of your mind. Those are things that you don't even know what it is and you don't know how to use it. Well, I suggest you find out what the signaling mirror is and how to use it. But somehow, if all fails, well, I take it the signaling mirror can only be used if the sun hasn't failed. Maps? Maybe a map, I don't know, if you know the mountains. But if you have to walk somewhere, you don't know where you are and where to go, it could be it could just seriously become lonesome up there. Maps, a compass. And remember, all these things are on your cell phones. They've got apps, but not in the mountains. There's normally no cell phone reception. Maybe the app will work. I haven't even tried. I don't know. I don't know if the app is going to show north, south, east or west if there's no reception. I'll have to try that out. Wearing or bringing shoes you can use for hiking. My goodness, you don't fly into a mountain with high heels. Sorry, ladies. Or if there's gents that want to wear that. You go into a mountainous area, you better have hiking stuff, rough stuff, stuff that can handle. Once you need it, you will find that your feet, strangely enough, is exceptionally important for your survival. Protection of your feet thus becomes a serious priority. Obviously your hands as well. And then I say, always bring emergency gear when flying in the mountains. Always bring emergency flight. People don't want to do that because they don't see so. But now, mountain flying is a taught skill. On the conclusion, it is a taught skill. It is not something, listen, if you write an article, and this is how I taught myself to do aerobatics, or this is how I taught myself to do mountain flying, you're an idiot. Sorry, I shouldn't have said you're an idiot if you do that. So I'll just repeat it, you're an idiot. Because to teach yourself things which you can be taught by others, others have already paid in blood for this. I'm not going to put my life on a 50-50 chance. I suggest you don't. It makes us look bad. Anyway, all right, so taught skill. Mountain flying takes careful helicopter weight and performance planning. It must be very well planned. Mountain flying is never done on the spur of the moment. It shouldn't be. It's a hostile environment. It's a beautiful environment. But do you know what? The more beautiful such an environment, the more dangerous. Going to the North Pole took many lives. To climb the highest mountain has taken many lives. To just fly has taken many. To sail the seas have taken many lives. At the flight safety meetings, I always say to the people there, thanks, we don't want your life as well. We've had enough lives. We know the rules. And you cannot write new rules. You can only underline the rules that already exist. And it's already been underlined so many times, we do not need your blood. We need your common sense. Now, what is your common sense? Common sense sense can only become common once you've taught and you've got the experience. Then it's like, oh well, you know, all helicopter pilots in the mountain knows this. Well, no, yeah, does the pilot know that? I don't know. I suggest that you get to a point where you actually know it. That's what I suggest. Look at the courses and then fly with somebody. Remember, watching the videos do not make you a mountaineer pilot until we meet again in more sessions.